The car stopped at the end of a long gravel driveway, swallowed by tall pine trees and the smell of rot. Evelyn sat stiffly in the passenger seat, fingers clenched around the backpack in her lap. Her mother hadn't spoken a word since they left the city. "You remember what I told you," her mother finally said, voice flat. "Don't call me Mom in front of him. Not ever." Evelyn turned toward her, confused. "But why? You said I'd be staying with family." Her mother's grip on the steering wheel tightened until her knuckles went white. "He doesn't know, and he doesn't need to." "But, Evelyn!" Her mother looked her dead in the eyes. "You are a housemaid here. That's it. You do what they say, keep your head down, and don't ask questions." A storm of questions brewed in Evelyn's throat, but before she could speak, her mother stepped out and slammed the door shut. Evelyn had no choice but to follow. The house was large, 3 stories tall, with faded siding and ivy choking the walls like veins. A porch swing creaked lazily in the breeze. It would have looked peaceful if not for the boarded-up windows on the upper floor. A man stepped out onto the porch. He was tall, thin, with slicked-back hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Martin. He looked Evelyn up and down like she was a stray dog at the pound. "She's smaller than I expected," he said, not to Evelyn, but to her mother. "She's strong, doesn't eat much. Won't be any trouble," her mother replied. Martin's smile widened. "Good." Evelyn's chest tightened. Her mother didn't hug her, didn't say goodbye. She handed Martin an envelope, whispered something Evelyn couldn't hear, then turned and walked back to the car. "Wait!" Evelyn stepped forward. "You're leaving already?" Her mother didn't stop. She just got into the car and drove off, leaving a trail of dust behind her. Martin's hand clamped down on Evelyn's shoulder. "You'll call me Mr. Martin," he said. "And this," he gestured to the house behind him, "is not your home. You're here to work. That's all." Inside, the house was colder than outside. Every floorboard creaked like it wanted to scream. Martin led her past the kitchen, past the grand staircase, and stopped at a narrow door under the stairs. He opened it to reveal a dark, cramped space with a thin mattress on the floor. "This is where you sleep. No wandering. You clean, you cook, and you keep your mouth shut. Got it?" Evelyn nodded slowly, heart pounding. She stepped into the closet, the door shutting behind her. With a thud that felt like the first nail in a coffin, as she sat on the mattress and hugged her knees to her chest, she whispered to herself, "You'll survive this." What she didn't know then was that survival would come with a price, and one day she'd make them both pay it in blood. The darkness inside the room under the stairs had a personality. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was thick, suffocating, and full of secrets. Evelyn sat frozen on the thin mattress, listening to the sound of Martin's boots creaking across the wooden floors above her. Each step reminded her that this place wasn't safe. There was no window, just 4 walls, a bare bulb with a pull cord that flickered like it might burn out any second, and the faint scent of mold. She unpacked her bag slowly. 2 t-shirts, 1 pair of jeans, a toothbrush. No photos, no notes from her mother, just silence and the weight of abandonment. A knock on the door startled her. "Get up!" came a woman's voice, sharp, impatient.
Voice stop. Evelyn stood quickly, opened the door, and found herself face to face with Lillian, Martin's wife. She was younger than Evelyn had expected. Early 30s maybe, slim, too polished. Her eyes were cold, her lipstick perfect. "I don't care who you are," Lillian said, voice like ice. "You're not here to be seen, you're here to serve. You'll mop the floors every morning, prepare dinner before 6, and stay out of sight when guests are around. Understand?" Evelyn nodded. "Say it," Lillian snapped. "I understand. Good. Start by cleaning the upstairs bathroom. Don't touch anything personal, or you'll regret it. With that, she shoved a plastic bucket into Evelyn's arms and turned away. The upstairs bathroom was lined with marble but stank of mildew. Evelyn scrubbed until her hands hurt, but nothing seemed clean enough. Her eyes caught a flick. Evelyn had barely slept. Her first night in Martin's house haunted her with nightmares, shadows creeping behind closed doors, whispers in the dark. At dawn she quietly rose and tiptoed downstairs to begin the chores, hoping to avoid his gaze. Martin wasn't in the kitchen, but his presence lingered. A half-empty whiskey glass on the table, the faint scent of cigar smoke. She washed the glass and started scrubbing the tiles. Every movement echoed in the silence. Just as she finished mopping, a sharp noise came from upstairs, a door slamming shut. Her heart jumped. He's awake. Martin lumbered down the stairs shirtless, eyes bloodshot. You missed a spot, he muttered, pointing to a dry stain she had clearly scrubbed. I'll clean it again, she said softly, avoiding eye contact. He leaned in too close. Better. I like obedience. As he walked away, she caught sight of a set of keys dangling from his belt. Keys she hadn't noticed before. One of them looked strange. It was old, rusted, different from the others. She wondered where it led. Later that afternoon, while Martin was passed out on the couch, drunk again, Evelyn explored the house. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs. One was hers, small, dusty, barely furnished. Martin's room was locked. But it was the third door that drew her attention. The door was plain but solid. No knob, just a keyhole, the kind that needed that strange rusted key. She pressed her ear against it. Nothing. Then, she knocked. Silence. Evelyn backed away, heart racing. There was something behind that door. She could feel it, the same way you feel a storm before it arrives. That night she couldn't help but ask herself, why would Martin keep a room locked in his own house? What was her mother hiding by sending her here? The more she thought about it, the more she realized, this wasn't just about punishing her for being useless. It was about burying something. Or someone, and Evelyn wasn't going to survive this house unless she found out what was on the other side of that door. Evelyn couldn't stop thinking about the locked door. It was like an itch in her brain, one she couldn't scratch. The next morning, she lingered near the stairs, pretending to clean the banister while keeping an eye on Martin. He sat in his recliner, passed out with his arm dangling off the side, the keyring resting on his thigh. She held her breath and crept closer. But before her fingers could reach the keys, his hand twitched. Evelyn froze. A second passed. Then another. His breathing remained deep. She backed away and quickly busied herself with the dishes, heart hammering. That night, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked, lightning flashed, and the old house groaned with each gust of wind. Evelyn lay in bed, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. Then she heard it, a faint thump, followed by a dragging sound. From behind the locked door, she sat up, every muscle tensed. It came again. Thump. Drag. A muffled cry. She tiptoed to her door and peeked into the hallway. It was dark, but a sliver of light leaked from under the locked room. Was someone inside? Suddenly, the floorboard behind her creaked. Evelyn spun around and found Martin standing in the hallway watching her. You don't sleep much, do you? He asked, his voice low and eerie. I thought I heard something, she stammered. Martin stepped forward, closing the distance between them. This house has old bones. It talks at night. You better get used to it. His eyes narrowed. Don't go poking around places you shouldn't. She nodded quickly, then hurried back into her room. But she pressed her ear to her wall. The one she now realized was shared with the locked room. And then she heard it again. A whisper. So faint she couldn't make out the words. But it was there. She wasn't alone in this house. The house always felt haunted, but today it seemed to whisper something different. While scrubbing mildew off the basement tiles, her hand brushed against a hollow patch on the wall. Curiosity replaced dread. She pried it open. Behind it was a hidden door, dusty and locked with rusted chains. She took a hammer from the toolbox, heart pounding, and shattered the lock. Inside was a small room with a dusty mattress, a camera, and a stack of tapes labeled with names. Her stomach dropped. Some names she recognized, missing girls from the neighborhood. Others were strangers. A putrid smell of mildew and secrets hung in the air. She inserted a tape into the camera. What she saw shattered her. Her stepfather, his voice, his crimes, and in the background, faint but clear, Her mother's voice. Pleading? No. Negotiating. She collapsed onto the floor. Betrayal carved into her like a knife. Her mother knew. She'd always known. This wasn't just abuse. It was business. Tears dried quickly. A new emotion surged through her, resolve. She gathered the tapes, made copies, and hid them outside in a trash bag buried under leaves behind the old doghouse. She couldn't trust the police yet. They had ignored her cries before. But now she had evidence. Power. For the first time in her life, she had control. She just needed one more thing, a confession. Night fell with eerie silence. She wore her plain uniform and greeted her stepfather with tea, just like every night. But this time, the tea was laced with a sedative. Not enough to knock him out, just enough to dull his instincts. There's something you should see, she said, leading him to the basement. He grunted, annoyed but curious. Inside the secret room he froze. She shut the door behind him. Locked it. What is this? He growled. You know what it is, she said calmly, holding the camera. Say it. Say what you've done. He laughed. You think anyone will believe you? I don't care if they believe me. I have proof. His face changed. The drug was working. He stumbled slightly. You think you're smart, huh? Like your mother? At that, she snapped. She sold me to you. He lunged. She dodged, smashing the camera across his face. Blood splattered the wall. He fell, gasping. She didn't finish him. She didn't have to. She planted a backup recorder in the wall and left him unconscious, surrounded by the tapes. Then she texted an anonymous tip to the police. It was time. She sat on the front steps, shaking, waiting for the sirens. Her mother arrived first. You crazy little brat! She screamed, storming inside. Where is he? Downstairs. With the truth. You ruined everything. Do you know what you've done to us? To us? She laughed bitterly. He raped me. You let him. Her mother slapped her. But it was too late. The power was gone. Suddenly, a loud crash came from the basement. Her stepfather, bloodied, broken, had crawled up the stairs with a fire poker. You'll die for this, he rasped. Her mother screamed and backed away. He charged. Time slowed. She grabbed the knife from the kitchen counter, the one he once used to threaten her, and plunged it into his chest. He collapsed on the carpet, gurgling. Silent. Police sirens wailed outside. Doors burst open. She dropped the knife, hands raised. They handcuffed her, read her rights, but she smiled faintly as they let her out. She wasn't the victim anymore. She was the story's ending.